All right, it's my pleasure and honor as your superintendent, Stephen John, for the audience out there, to convene this organizational meeting of the WCSU.
Executive Committee.
Yes, the WCSU Executive Committee, Board's Executive Committee. We are convening the Executive Committee because we do not yet enjoy a quorum sufficient to call a full WCSU Board meeting. We have enough school districts represented. We have 7. We only need 6, but we need to have 15 voting members to be able to constitute a quorum, since there are 29 voting members on the WCSU full board. So your previous chair has recommended that I convene the meeting as an executive committee, WCSU Board Executive Committee, which is the chairs of each board, or if the chair is not available, the vice chair. So, so we all know who's voting on these issues as we proceed, if there's something to vote on. And the first order of business for us to conduct the meeting without me taking over, which is not a good idea, is for me to open up nominations for a chair of the executive committee in lieu of a full board vote.
For this meeting.
For this meeting, just for this session. If we enjoy a full board quorum sometime later in the evening, then I will ask for interruption of the executive board meeting and reconvene the meeting as a full board. That'll be interesting for you, won't it, Peter? That'll be very exciting, yeah. Peter's up to it, though. So thank you for being here, Peter. And so I think that the first thing before we have elections, though, we should give an opportunity for people to introduce themselves so we all know what your name is and what board you're serving on. I think that's fair enough. And if you have a position on the board, probably should say that as well.
I'm Siobhan Young. I'm the vice chair, I think, of the Stratton
That's
School
right,
Board.
you are. Thank you for being here. Voting. Yeah.
I'm Stephanie Amio, I'm the chair of the Jamaica Board.
Jennifer Dorduque, I'm a new member of the Jamaica Board.
Johnny Cleanthus of the Dover School Board.
Chip Vickery from the Dover School Board.
Rich Warner from the Dover School Board.
Rod Sanderson from the Townsend School Board and Secretary.
Douglas Korb from Marlborough School Board.
Mike Murphy from the Wardsboro School Board.
Mike Cusick, Wardsboro School Board Vice Chair.
Dave Sklar, Wardsboro School Board.
Kelly Warner, Leland and Gray School Board.
Joe Winrick, Leland and Gray Chair.
Right, so I notice we don't actually have a voting, we don't have a chair or vice chair from Townsend.
That's correct.
But we still have a quorum sufficient to make executive committee decisions. So, let's entertain our audience here, if we might.
I'm Bill Anton, I'm the principal of the Dover School, and July 1st, I will be the superintendent of the Wyndham Central Supervisory Union.
This guy's brave enough to follow me. This is pretty better. Give him a pat on the back, cheer him up. Okay,
Nancy Dyke, Wyndham.
Jerry Dyke, Wyndham.
and Peter, maybe people.
Peter Barris, minutes recorder.
Yeah. And our videographer is Rich, last name?
Melanson.
Melanson, right. Bud?
Bud DeBonis, Chief Financial Officer.
Okay, so without further ado, nominations are open for Chair of the Wyndham Central Supervisor Union Board Executive Committee. Do we have nominations?
I'll nominate Rich Warner.
Okay, Joe nominates Rich Warner.
Second.
That's second by Douglas Korb. Are there nominations? Do you accept a nomination,
Oh,
sir?
yeah.
Okay. Any other nominations? Hearing none and seeing none, I presume you're ready for a vote of acclamation. All those in favor of Rich Warner as your chair of the executive board of the WCSU board, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay? Abstentions? Congratulations, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. So we covered number 1 and number 2 for an executive meeting. I think we'll review the agenda, just see if there's anything anybody wants changed. Remembering that we're not gonna be able to do the agency fund budget, we're not gonna do anything that requires a full board vote. Is there any other comments, revisions, or things that are missing in the agenda? Oh, perfect. Number 5. Executive committee can approve minutes, can't they?
Yep. I hope you do, because I got a pile of them that you can see.
So we go all the way back to almost a year ago. So we need a motion to approve the May 27th, 2015 meeting, the October 28th, 2015, December 2nd, 2015, February 24th, 2016, and March 7th, 2016. Some of these are Act 46 minutes, and they've all been out and about, and Stephen has.
I have hard copies here if any board members would like them. And just to explain why this is the case, unless I'm able to verify that in the minutes of the subsequent meeting, you've approved the prior minutes, these are still draft hanging. And if you looked at the WCSU website, you would see a whole lot of draft minutes. And I'm trying to get that down to, and so if you have any questions or additions or corrections, now's the time to speak up. And I know that this is partially, I think Peter's been taking pretty good care of this since he came on board, but this actually precedes you a bit, doesn't it, or am I imagining?
Possibly.
Yeah.
What was the last date mentioned for minutes?
Well, the earliest, the last one was March 7th, this was once again a Act 46 meeting. And those minutes are labeled that way, so people can find them, but it's, there are a lot more meetings than we usually have.
So do we have a
So
motion?
can only voting members make the motion? Or
Yes.
that'd be true, right?
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
Well, I can make a motion to approve the minutes for, do I have to say all the dates?
No, you can just say as listed.
As listed in the WCSU Board meeting agenda.
Do we have a second?
Second.
We'll give it to Wardsboro. Okay, is there anything? Okay, let's do this vote since there's been a motion before. So, there's a motion, a second, and is there any discussion? Okay, remembering now that it's just the chairs that get to vote, please, or
Or
the
vice
vice
chair.
chairs. So all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Is there any opposed and any abstentions? Okay. Hey, how are you?
Hi, good.
We're gonna have you introduce yourself because we don't quite have a full board yet, so we're doing an executive.
All right, Beth McDonald, Wyndham.
Are you vice chair up there?
No, just clerk.
So we're doing an executive to go through some of the items in the
But
budget.
we're all good for executive, right?
Yeah, we're all good, but
Yes.
I think, and then we need one more person, right? 1, 2, 3, 4.
It's been suggested I offer
Can I get a brief
free
piece?
pizza and everything. No, Mike doesn't, not a voting member. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 13.
So we need 2 more.
We need 2 more. Let's keep pulling for those people to come in and vote late.
Okay, so let's skip over all of number 6 because that needs a full board approval to approve the budget. And I think it'd be better if we have more people here to do the Act 46 discussion unless anybody has any issues with that. Number 7, some of this is just gonna be discussion, so why don't we go ahead and hit that? We'll start with status of search for Director of Curriculum, Instruction Assessment Technology Integration
Very good.
Information.
Very good, you got that
Lead
down.
us
That's
forward,
beautiful.
Stephen.
Yes, so we have a strong applicant pool. We have narrowed it down from around 16 to perhaps 4 to 5 candidates to interview. I'm looking Bill's way just to make sure I've got the numbers straight. Mr. Anton is also involved in the interview process. We will be interviewing next week, Wednesday and Thursday evenings. And we expect to be able to make some decision shortly thereafter. Of course, we offer the position, hopefully it's accepted, then we negotiate terms and proceed to contract. Are there questions? Well, by the way, this title may be throwing up, but I did put it out, I think, for everyone to see when we posted it. This is a reconfiguration and an evolution from Matt Martin's present position of Director of Technology to one more closely tied to curriculum and instruction. And it still uses technology in terms of integrating it to support learning, teaching and learning. And it will involve, I think, a more analytical approach in terms of looking at the numbers, not just numbers, but the indicators of student outcome that we seek. That's the concept moving forward. And it really indicates not that we don't need technology, but rather that we need to apply it in the classroom, and that we have achieved in the WCSU a very robust connection and platform of hardware and software throughout all the schools. We are approaching almost universal one-on-one computing status for our students. So this is very commendable. I mean, I'm commending you as board member for supporting the budget that makes this investment and makes this possible for our students' learning. Questions? Thank you.
I just have one quick one. So when do you plan on having this position?
The position would begin July 1.
No, but when do you plan to hire or notify?
Well, that depends on what the pool turns out to be, but it could be as early as the first week in April. But, you know, sometimes these things don't go quite as smoothly as you have planned, so that's as I said, there are a couple of stages to it. And well, just so you know how these filling positions work. When you have the interview process and the recommendation of the superintendent, in this case, it's a position that I hire anyway, but you know, you offer it to the top candidate, and then perhaps the top candidate has some other offer, and they're waiting, and well, can you wait a week? And you know, then you have to decide, and then you go to the second candidate, and then you negotiate terms, and you come to agreement, and you finally conclude a contract. That's how it works in professional negotiations for this kind of position. And there is a job description, and you know that you can access that, or ask me to give it to you if you haven't caught it on the previous email. Thank you.
Everybody good? Speed we probably ought to skip over because that actually is going to require a vote. And we haven't appointed a committee yet.
Well, there is a WCSU policy committee, but I'm not sure they're here. I'd have to convene them separately. You know, they've been appointed by the boards. But just let me speak to the issue publicly. Now that you have a list, you should be aware all your fellow board members got this same list. It's a chart that it is not, I gave them the classic colored one, you guys got the black and white.
I'll share.
But it's, what the point is that you'll see a double entry for each of these policies. And the second one is now the new code for the same policy that we've already adopted. And I've, you know from my work in policy with all of your boards that you all have policies pretty well adopted and up to date. But this is a matter of recoding them. And in that case, as you know, you don't have to warn it unless the language is different. So it may be those of you that are concerned about a particular, or your colleague board members are, a particular one of these, to check online to see that the language matches from the VSBA matches what yours is. And if there's a conflict, then obviously you have to discuss it and work it out and decide what you want to do. But if they're the same and you're just changing the code number, then you just review it and continue the policy with the new code. I'm trying to I'm trying to speed up the pace of adoption to make sure we're all together on this. Now, these are the required ones. This is a complete list of all the required by law and regulation policies. Yes?
I believe that we link from our site to the WCSU
Yes.
for these.
That's
now,
right.
do we have to check on the WCSU site, or is that checked by Meg?
No, you can, well, that's a good point. We have this set up so that the place to go for record, you know, the language of record is on the website, right, adopted by your board, if it's available electronically. Now, there are some obscure policies that may not be available electronically for some of the boards, but that would be the case, you know, that's where you would look. But the thing is that I have not given you the hard copy. I have hard copies of the other ones here, but I have not given you the hard copy of these because I reviewed a number of them and found them to be exactly the same. So, but if there's a particular policy that is, you know, of concern to your board or you as an individual member, then go to the Vermont School Boards Association website, go to resources, go to the first click down below that is model policy handbook. And if you go down on the left-hand column, you'll see all of these that I've listed here. There's only A1 on the left-hand column as being required. The Bs are all complete. This is a complete list of what's required by the model policy. And since the language is vetted by their lawyers and is, you know, required by law, I advise the boards not to vary from these. You know, legally could you? Yeah. But I don't think it serves a purpose for future administration in terms of making life, you know, consistent across the SU. Other questions about that list? So it would be just a matter of review. You don't have to post and warn for 30 days. You just are taking it up, and if the language is different, then you'll wanna warn that one and post it for 30 days, 10 days before you adopt it.
I think the only thing the full board has to do is budgets and hire the superintendent. I think the executive committee can
Could do
adopt
this, huh?
policy.
Yeah,
Do you
well,
have-
certainly,
do
because
you
the
have a copy
policy.
of that with you?
The bylaws, does anybody have a computer there with it here, can get on board? I think it would be Mike, or maybe Bud, or, can you online, Bill? I think we have access here without a password now. They used to have passwords here, but I did make it more public. And go to the WCSU and see if we can find the bylaws.
So
I have them on my computer, but that's a good question. I didn't anticipate the difficulty tonight, because we could, the reason I listed this as a warn is because I just wanted the public to know and all the boards, so when you got to a board meeting, you weren't surprised about these code changes, and you had an opportunity to look at it beforehand. Because, you know, candidly, the past 7 years, a majority, or a lot of my time's been spent on trying to get this stuff adopted and straight for you. Okay, these bylaws were approved on 3/27. You got too many clickers there for me, Bill. That's not very impressive, is it? You think it's done? Oh, no, it's still loading.
No, it says loading.
Okay, well, we'll get to that. Now, let me move on to the other issue. I mailed out, emailed 3 policies, I believe, or at least 2. And you have hard copies of that in your pile, in your little packet there. The first one is called A1. It used to be B3. Uh-oh. Bill, can you take a look here, because I'm not getting, we got one of those ugly, sad faces here. See if we can get it. Okay, so that's board conflict, you know, board member conflict of interest. This is not new to any of you. I just thought, since this is an organizational meeting, it might be handy to have a hard copy to look over tonight or something, and, you know, see if that reminds you of anything. You know, guides your practice is what I'm saying. And that is on the list that you have in that other chart, because it is required, and I don't think it's different from what you have already adopted. Then the next 2 that I have are one that is, they're both not required. The next one, I think if it's there, is probably personnel, recruitment, selection, and, I have it there, I should look in my own pile, I got it. Yeah, selection and criminal background checks. Everybody got that one? So this one also is actually new to all of us. We've had some procedures and so forth, but this actually, I think, is a very sound policy. And you know, insofar as we can be consistent about this across our various school districts, the better. And so that's why that's before you, but that would have to be warned, which is what the question you're raising. See, we could warn that for everybody here. If there are questions about that, if you've had a chance to read it before, maybe you have questions. Otherwise, maybe you don't take a motion on it. But that's why that's before you for consideration. Then following that one, you'll find one that says Dover. I don't know why that's there. I think I explained in the email to you that this Dover school district policy on verification of student residency has evolved from Stratton and my previous experience with Winhall as well. And I think it's the most detailed and perhaps the clearest of any of the policies. And this is not a policy that's required, so it is one to be considered. And I just believe that from an administrative point of view and consistency and clarity with the public, if we could all have the same one in all our school districts, it would be wise to do so. And as it is new or different language for most of your districts, except Dover, of course, it would need to be warned and, of course, retitled and all that. And the reason why it's important to those of you that don't have much choice or don't, you tuition students, some of you, Marlboro 9 through 12, Wardsboro and Dover 7 through 12. The others may think, well, I don't, and of course Stratton tuitions everybody, and you have the most experience with this, Siobhan, so you could speak to whether it's workable or not. But pre-K is an issue in the future for all of us, because any resident of any of our towns can choose to send their child to any approved pre-K, public or private, in the region. And so they can't do it out of state, but otherwise. So you're gonna pay tuition, which now is at $3,000. It's not the full tuition, but it's support, $3,000 for 10 hours a week of instruction at pre-K level. And I think it would be very prudent to make sure that's consistent, because I get calls all the time from parents that just don't, understand the rules. And it's reason, there's reasons besides us, but if we were consistent, it would help. Questions on that or comments? So once again, this would be one that you'd have to warn at your meeting. If we could warn it tonight on behalf of all the boards, that'd be fine. And actually Stratton, Siobhan, you could decide to change or not. That'd be up to you, your folks. But do you want to say anything more about that kind of policy, or?
Yeah, this is very close to the policy we have, but it does have some things in it that I like.
Uh-huh.
So we probably will make some changes,
Try to
whereas
make-
the tighter your policy is, the better.
Yeah.
And just from Dover's side, we actually have had some issues come up with residency in the past, and that's why we went through this, and we have had a hearing with the State Board of Ed, assigned a person come down and have a hearing, and we were okay with, the policy didn't cause us any issues or any problems. And I think Bill would probably remember, but I think we just made some changes, back in June of last year. So
June
it's fair,
15th.
and it was, if you look on the second page, it was reviewed by the, Greg Glennon Esquire. From,
He's the Agency of Education legal counsel.
So we seem to have had really good luck with it.
All right, move on. No questions, you can move on.
Well, Bill seems to be.
Oh, Bill's gonna find out about the bylaws. We can come back to it if he finds out we can do something.
Is everybody good with that? Any questions or thoughts or comments? How about number C, consider dates for WCSU Board Retreat meeting, discussion. So we always try to do a retreat in the fall and, try to do some training and have dinner in somewhere in Wyndham, or in Wyndham Central's area. And they've been pretty successful and everybody seems to enjoy them pretty much. So usually we've had them try to shoot for sometime in October. I think last year we did have ours in October last
Was
year.
it late September?
Late September.
Late September, okay.
You got-
Oh,
What's the bylaws, the executive?
Okay.
allow us to approve.
Approve a draft WCSU budget to handle general WCSU personnel issues as brought forward by superintendent. Negotiate and renew contract with superintendent, confirm hire of all other licensed WCSU employees. Conduct the evaluation of superintendent, conduct search and recommend the candidates for superintendent, hire consultants. What's it say? Employ attorneys, authorize, approve settlements and litigation, appoint a local standards board member for 3 years. Act on any other matter on behalf of the WCSU board in urgent or emergency situations when action is necessary for the best interest of the WCSU and a quorum of the full board cannot be gathered for a meeting. Well, I would suggest that there is some urgency regarding the agency fund, budget,
I don't think so.
but not enough. I mean,
I don't.
I just want
We got the
direction.
lawyer shaking his head
Yeah.
no.
Well, I just want direction to proceed on that basis, because I can't really,
I think on the policies, we're not there.
no,
Does anybody
there's no emergency on the policies.
Yeah, does anybody disagree with that? So I guess we're not gonna be able to adopt them unless we get 2 more people to show up. Unless Joe gets Emily on the phone and you get Al on the phone, and then we can have our 2 on phone, at least we could do the budget stuff.
Okay, well,
Okay, so WCSU, a date for board retreat.
you want
That's,
late September again?
yeah, can we shoot for a late September date, and maybe, we can ask Stephen and Bill, because it'll actually be the new superintendent's kind of first retreat, to maybe look at some dates and locations for us and maybe bring back a couple of suggestions at the May meeting, because that should still give people plenty of time to plan on it. Does anybody have a problem with that?
If you would like to note on your calendars, it's September 28th would be the last Wednesday of the month. And of course, the previous Wednesday would be the, what's the 21st. So I'm gonna note that those are both possibilities. Yeah, okay, thank you.
And then if everybody can, and we'll ask them to also maybe give us some suggestions on topics. You know, we usually use it for a period of time to catch up on, you know, any new legislation that we have to be concerned about. I'm sure we're still gonna be discussing Act 46 stuff, because I don't think, even when we finally have our vote in 2017 and told what's happening, I don't think we're gonna be over with it. And anything else that anybody'd like to see, you know, definitely make sure you let your board chairs know, and then they can let Stephen and or Bill know as they go to your next meetings in the next month. Anybody got anything now that they wanna see, or? Cool. On to number D. Consider groups of board meeting monthly on a carousel basis.
Well, this is once again a dream of the superintendent, or at least the fantasy, that as we're moving on Act 46, there is a meeting, for example, this Tuesday, the 19th, for all the boards of the Leland and Gray group.
29th.
Huh?
29th.
29th, did I say the wrong date?
Yeah, you said
Okay.
that.
It is Tuesday though, right?
Yes.
Okay, good, thank you. That's not surprising, I'm confused about the dates. Any rate, Tuesday will be here. It's open to the public. It's a public meeting, however, it is an opportunity for the boards to, yeah, I think there will be recording of it, but it is an opportunity for those boards to speak and interact candidly about the future of how, you know, what approach to take regarding the Leland and Gray Union School District and descending school districts, members of the union. So that's 6 boards meeting that night. It's potentially, what was it, 19, 10, 20 some people. I think it's potentially quite a number. And I expect a pretty good attendance. Maybe we can review that. What do you think? Marlboro isn't involved, sorry. Jamaica's not involved. Leland Gray Board will probably be there. I'm sorry, I was pointing to Wardsboro and saying Jamaica, I'm bad. Siobhan is out of it, I understand now. Stanton's not gonna be attending, but Jamaica will be there, probably
Yeah.
well attended, well represented. And Townsend will probably be represented. And I think, I have every reason to believe Newbrook, both Brookline and Newfane will be attending. So, anyway, that's that meeting in the Leland Gray Board. I just asked them, they're certainly nodding their heads, they'll be here.
Wyndham?
And this actually doesn't have to do with our same voting or whatever. Wyndham, you're gonna be here, do you think somebody, Beth? Hi, Beth. Do you think somebody will be
What?
from Wyndham?
Yes,
Okay.
absolutely.
And, you know, this is not necessarily this is a different kind of thing, that it's a subgroup of the Act 46 study group and study committee. And some of you from other boards may be interested and curious, and you're welcome to send someone to listen in and attend, the public can attend. But the goal of the consultant is to meet with that group and see what things or what approaches can get eliminated or pinned down, so that the larger group of the WCSU can decide how to go. Because for the public's information, the critical nature of the K or pre-K through 12 group of Leland and Gray, it means if there is such a group formed, then other pairs of boards could consolidate or combine. For example, Wardsboro and Dover, or Marlboro and some other Halifax, or anyway, Marlboro has a configuration that's complicated. I'm just saying there are other things that could happen. Stratton and I don't know whether you're aware, Siobhan, but there has been some communication between Stratton and 3 other non-operational districts over towards Manchester Way, and then there's also been some communication with the chair of the Searsburg Board, which is south of here. So you know, and if that was a two or a group, it could be a side-by-side with something else that had a pre-K. But the law requires some pre-K through 12. One side of any sort of group has to be pre-K through 12. Questions on that?
Just that, you know, we'd definitely be sending somebody up to those meetings, so keep us in the loop.
Right, it's 7 o'clock Tuesday here, and didn't it go out to everybody? I
This
think-
coming to you?
Yeah, I think it did.
But it says monthly carousel, so what's like the next
Oh,
one?
I'm sorry.
No.
I'm
He
confusing
kinda
things.
got off on-
I got off track. I was putting the context. My thought about the carousel is that sometime it may be appropriate for boards to decide to meet together if they're looking into 46 study together.
Okay.
So, for example, Dover and Wardsboro might decide to meet one time in Wardsboro, another time in Dover. The Leland and Gray group might decide to meet here. And it really, I know you're beginning to look somewhat tired about meetings, and certainly the administration and, you know, the fact that we have to warn these meetings, post them, the minutes, and all, you know, it's administration duplication, really. So just consider that. I know, you know, my nickel isn't in the dime, because I won't, you know, I've got 3 more months, so I could probably make it. But my rate of meetings is going like this, not the other way, you know, so.
Well, we had this discussion a few years ago
Yeah.
too, on carousel meetings, and the idea being is like, instead of Stephen going to Jamaica and then to Wardsboro and then to wherever, that the boards come here or to a central location, and then several boards could meet at the same time, and the superintendent could do like 5 board meetings in one night, where, you know, like, one Board A is gonna meet in this room, the Leland and Gray Board maybe, and he'll be in here for his 15 to 20 minutes, and then maybe Jamaica's board is meeting in a classroom over there, so then he can go to that meeting, and then maybe, you know, Group C is in this room, and it allows the superintendent to travel around, so it kind of keeps the administration from having to, you know, drive around to a bunch of different meetings, because, you know, travel time, obviously, a lot of times we meet the same night as Marlboro. So Stephen may come to our meeting on his way home, do us for half an hour and we're all set with him, and then he goes on to Marlboro. So it's an idea to maybe make it a little more convenient for the administrator. We've talked about it, we've never done it. We have had, I know Marlboro's met in Dover before, because we happen to be having a joint meeting, so they met earlier. And then I know some boards have had meetings here before, like a WCSU meeting. So Stephen will meet with that group first, and then, you know, when that breaks, and they come in to the WCSU meeting. So it was just something he was putting out there to kind of have people think about. And, you know, VSBA actually recommended it. At one time, we had, it was not Stephen Dale, but it was before him, it was a gentleman that's a superintendent up north. He had done some training and.
Ray Prue.
No, it was another
K,
gentleman.
Brent K?
I don't remember, but.
Winton
It was a guy that worked
Goodrich,
for,
right?
Winton Goodrich had suggested it way back when, so there has been some talk about it. If there is some interest, we can actually, you know, for the annual meeting, if you folks did think that may be something some of you wanted to do, and it doesn't have to be all groups, I mean, it could be like, when, you know, you could have like centrally, like maybe Newfane, Townsend, and Leland and Gray meet, because it's pretty close together. And then, like Stephen was saying, maybe Wardsboro and Dover, one meeting a month, we can meet in the same location, and we can alternate months or something. So if it's worth, if everybody would give it some consideration, we can discuss it at the annual meeting. It'd be a topic at the annual meeting to try. Is there any thoughts on that, or is anybody?
I think one thing that's really hard at this very point in time is a lot of the community interest in our Act 46 discussions.
Yeah.
And encouraging public to attend those meetings. It's helpful having them in our local schools. So that's,
That's always been a concern, a drawback, because it's harder for the public if they have issues that they want to come see.
And, you know, I don't know about everybody here, but, you know, our meeting's not the hot night out, you know. But right now, with Act 46 especially, it's.
You have a little better attendance. Huh?
Exactly, so it's a difficult time to think about changing that up until we kind of settle down on the Act 46 stuff.
Anybody else have any thoughts? Just one of the things is we have a joke in Dover a lot of times, because we always have members of the public, and our thing is always, okay, not all at once, you know, you gotta take your turn, and you know, and there's nobody in the chairs, so So sometimes, but I've always felt that it needs to be locally so that if people do wanna come in, so it's a hard, coin toss. And
Yeah.
then maybe the way you deal with that is, maybe the business meetings when the superintendent needs to be there can be done at these, this group meeting, and then the Act 46 stuff has to be, those are warned and those are done at your local school, so.
Well, I've just shared too, my observations of all the meetings. None of them are very widely attended by the public. Jamaica recently had more people attend. I know that Wyndham takes the cake for having regular attendees. They usually have 3 or 4
They come to our meetings.
members. So and that's 4 o'clock in the afternoon, which is interesting, but there's regular attendance, public attendance at that meeting. But apart from that, Marlboro, we really accept the meetings warned for a specific issue.
Yeah, we have our committee meeting nights
Different.
specifically set for Act 46, and at our meetings, they're just updates of what's happening in the committee. So the public, if they're interested in that, would go to that. If it's
And
about
Townsend,
something else.
you had a,
Rarely, I think once or twice have you had somebody show up in the last year.
right, but you have an act, and of course, distance isn't a problem compared to
No,
being
no,
here,
no, great,
so.
no.
It's a long walk.
You had an Act 46 meeting that was.
That was different. That was a
well
special
attended.
meeting.
It was a special meeting, and, well, Wardsboro, you wanna report? I mean, we haven't had too many people there, right? It's,
No, we're just talking,
I was
he was the last member of the
Member of
public,
the
and look what
public.
happened to him.
you've been on the board, you've been on the board for 1.5 years, 2 years now, right? Yeah, oh well. And Stratton, what, residency
Shows
hearing?
up if the public needs a
Resi-
hearing.
Residency hearing, yeah, that's when you get the public, yeah. And Dover, you do have some attendance from time to
Mainly
time,
Act
but not
46
much.
stuff.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, well, just take it under advisement. As I said, I really feel obliged to try to point out ways we can be more efficient and effective in terms of our governance, regardless of where Act 46 goes. Thank you.
Okay. So on Tuesday the 29th, that's under next meeting, so we'll kind of discuss that more then, if that's good. So approved WCSU meeting calendar for FY 2017. So Stephen has a draft, it looks like this.
Yeah. Everyone's got a copy of this one? Did you get left out? Are we okay? All right. This is following the same pattern as previous years, so, it's easy for me to make a chart like this and then just go through and update the dates, which is what I've done. And if you have, or anticipate as a board something different, this is not the last meeting that could cover this issue. You could, once again, revise it in May, at your May 25th meeting, but I want to make sure that you have it, you have your calendars together and you recognize, as we can see tonight with this meeting, we don't enjoy a quorum, and it certainly isn't because, it wasn't notified a year ago. This meeting did not change from last year, maybe it was in May we did this calendar before, but I think it was this one. Anyway, it's, but certainly we need to give people notice, so this is the proposal. Any questions about the sequence? Some of you new to the board may be wondering why we're having these meetings, but this particular schedule as it stands. You can see that some of them are executive board meetings and also warned as full board, because the executive committee certainly has to be there to try to make these decisions regarding the preparation of the budget in November, leading to December. And this last year, we actually canceled one of the budget meetings because we came to conclusion more quickly. We didn't do a second meeting in December. We did it, I think it was approved December 2nd this last year. The calendar falls differently this year, which is why we have that November 30th date there. And you see it's vague in January. That's the usual time to be meeting as your boards individually to evaluate the superintendent, which you didn't, we were spared that this year, but I do have something I'd like to indulge later. I'll speak to, ask your indulgence with. And then you can see March 22nd is pretty close to March 23rd, which is today, so that's how you come up with that meeting.
So is there any discussion on the calendar? If there isn't, I think this is definitely in the executive committee's purview, so.
Yeah.
There's no questions. Could somebody make a motion to approve the draft calendar?
I'll make a motion to approve the WCSU.
Oh, I don't think you can. I'm
Why
sorry.
not?
You gotta be the chairman or the vice chairman.
Oh, I
I'll
thought
make it.
Wyndham had, like,
Special
We have 3 voters, but you,
I'm not
the
welcome.
well,
No.
we're trying to hold
It's supposed to
ourselves
be
to
a
the
full board
bylaw,
meeting.
sorry.
We'd love to.
You would have helped if we had a quorum.
She
We-
can't share, she's in Montpelier. Darn chair.
Well, the vice chair can do it too, that's why I asked if you're the vice chair.
She came to that 46 meeting,
Yeah.
we're splitting it.
Go ahead, sir.
I'll make the motion.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay,
So
so
moved and Siobhan seconded.
is there any discussion?
1 second, the January one, why isn't there a date?
Because it's not, there's not a meeting for it, we usually send out paperwork to the boards, and then the boards do the evaluation, submit it to the WCSU board chair, and they put it together. But, and then it gets discussed at the reorganizational meeting. If we were doing it, this would be the time we would all sit down and say, okay, this is what, we'd ask Stephen to leave, this is what we have, and we put together a written, document to give to the superintendent that he signs, and it goes in his permanent file.
Right. You
For
may not
everyone's-
be familiar with this, just to explain to everyone, the board meets and in executive session goes over the questions in the evaluation. Now that, the questions may change, the process could change with the new superintendent and your sense of what works best, but, that's the way it's worked in the past, and so in January, depending on when your board meets, is when that evaluation takes place from your board, and then it's conveyed to the executive committee, the officers actually, and they compile the information so it remains confidential and anonymous, and they meet then in executive session with the superintendent to share that evaluation.
I must have amnesia because I don't remember doing this in January.
Well, that's
We
because
didn't
this
this
year
year.
we didn't do it. I
superintendent's
appealed
leaving.
for a different approach, and I'm gonna speak to that a little bit, but it's mostly because I'm retiring, that it really wasn't a matter of continuing my contract. We were having enough meetings anyways.
The other thing is the evaluation process, we've been doing this for probably like 15 years now. And the question that we have kind of gotten it way down, it used to be like 100 and something questions, I think we're down to like 40 now.
Yeah.
And there's some discussion if some of those questions are relevant, so, you know, what we need to do is just, to remember the evaluation is to kind of help the superintendent and the board to know, are we all going in the same direction? There was things that Dr. John would say that he thought he was doing really poorly at, and the board would say, no, you're doing fine at
Yeah.
that, don't worry about that. Here's some things.
But work on this.
Right,
Yeah.
you know, so it's a really good tool, so, but we also wanna make sure that it's a tool, it's not a tool to, you know, like hammer them with, it's a tool to help everybody get better. And,
Great, thanks.
so hopefully, you know, we'll be able to work on that with our new superintendent. Is there any other discussion? If not, are you folks ready to vote? Okay, so all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Calendar, you got a new calendar
There
there.
you go. Well,
Mr.
post it
Antone.
for you, and you can put it in your appointment calendars, and, you know, try to preserve those days so you can secure a quorum for those meetings.
So May 18th, 2016, up at Fairleigh, there's gonna be a superintendent and board chair training. They try to say it's required, it's 8 hours. It isn't too bad if you don't lock your keys in your truck. They do feed you lunch and they feed you dinner. And it was a good time. I think Stephanie went, I went, Joe, Emily, Stephen.
I've been there
And
twice.
who else was there? Was that it for our
Uh,
group last year?
No, somebody, Jen Carr.
Oh, yes, from Marlboro. It's, if you, so, you just let Stephen know and then he'll register you, but all the board chairs should try to attend if they can, or somebody from each board. And again, I thought it was gonna be awful, and it really wasn't that bad, but
And he's a good critic.
the food was really good, and boy, do I know food. So, the food wasn't bad at all. Lunch was better than dinner. And it was, there was a lot of Act 46 stuff, and I'm sure there'll be a lot of conversation about Act 46, so it'd be, you know, good for that. And, you know, the other thing that's nice is they have a guest speaker and you can, you know, they have different topics. I'm sure that hasn't been put out yet, but it'll be out there soon. And you don't even have to be the board chair, but any board member that wants to go can attend.
And you're welcome for the following 2 days too, if something interests you in the calendar.
Is this Lake Maury? We went up,
Yeah.
we all went up
Lake
there
Maury.
last year. I think.
Did you?
Was
Did
it
your whole
just-
group go? You-
Yeah,
oh,
I
I don't remember having Kim.
No, we were there.
You
We had
and
dinner
Jen
there.
and-
Oh,
Jen
okay.
and
Selena,
Selena.
yeah, okay, all, yeah,
I
you were
lied.
3 at that
Because
time.
it says superintendent board chairs, but there's more than, because,
Right.
Yeah.
that's what I'm
All
saying, it's not
boards.
just excluded
No.
to
Right,
chairs.
that's when it came across, thank you for clarifying that,
Yeah.
because it,
Yeah, I'm sorry, you know, there is a legal obligation about training,
Right, it gets us out of that legal obligation.
That's right.
It covers the legal obligation for superintendents and board chairs training, but
That's
any
right.
board member
Any
can
board
go.
members can go. It's a good time to network with other board members and realize what, you know, what's going on around the block. It starts about noon or something like that, and, and then it goes till 8 o'clock. It's not like late after dinner.
Actually, we didn't do
It's
anything
about a
after
2 hour,
dinner.
it's about a 2 hour, hour and 2 hours, something like that. You know, it's good to carpool too, so. Let me know. You'll be receiving that directly from the Vermont School Boards Association too, if you're on the email list properly, which you might, you know, if you're not getting something, you wanna make sure you are. There is a journal that comes electronically as well. Yeah, I wanted to get back to the school calendar too,
Oh, you wanna go back? We already approved it.
not the school calendar.
No, we skipped over this.
Oh, the board calendar. Did I skip the school calendar? I'm sorry.
And
So
remember, this was a big mess.
Yeah. So Chip Vickery's very good at calendars.
Yeah, he gets credit. Where is Chip?
So,
There you go. My
anyways,
man.
I skipped it. Wyndham Central Supervised Union 2016-2017 calendar. You know, this is the thing that when we were all in high school, we all hated it because it showed us how quick our summer vacation was gonna end and how soon we had to come back here. So, Stephen, lead us.
Well, so I just want to, you know, you have it all now electronically, and this is the corrected copy. I'm embarrassed that the first time we sent it out, and Meg sent it out for, no, I think I sent it out actually, but Meg prepared it for me with Allison's help. We had the February break in a week earlier than what this calendar shows. And I just want to explain that that's because this year's winter break was in the teens. And the calendar that I was depending on, the Career Center calendar approved by the Wyndham Southeast Supervisory Union, their administration and the Career Center, had erroneously sent us, and actually a bunch of superintendents were all sitting around looking at the same thing, that the week of vacation was in the teens again, the 13th through 17th. So if you have an old one that you got from me that says 13th through 17th, that's wrong. Now, the way you can always figure this out is look at town meeting on the 7th. And we always have a week of school before town meeting. Now, you may receive comment from the public, why don't we take off that week before town meeting and then just carry on with an in-service with the teachers and, you know, keep the kids, give them a longer break, because then they can go to Bahamas or Florida or whatever. Well, the reason for that is that in the interest of most boards and certainly administration, it's important to not make it tempting to avoid attending town meeting or school district meeting. And if there's vacation, it's likely to cause that, especially among the parents of kids. Just so you know, the cynical behind-the-scenes discussion regarding vacations. At any rate, it does vary. Northern part of the state does a little bit differently. I think it's a week later. But this region of superintendents, both Springfield Career Center and Brattleboro are coordinated with this same week off, and that is important. The law says that we have to have a calendar that supports the calendar of the Career Center for our kids at the high school level that go to the Career Centers. So, questions? You can see we have quite a variety of length of the school year. Also note, if you're not familiar with this, that it says, you know, the projected end dates do not include makeup days for snow. So the beauty of this calendar is when you see the end date there and you get a snow day, just push it off another day. You just keep adding them at the end. And this year, how many snow days have we had? Some of you may have had two, but I think I was one. You got 0, you're down to 0. Oh, you came half days or late, didn't you, on that day? We've had one in the Leland Gray group. Marlboro, I don't know.
I think you have one.
I think you had one too. So, this is a pretty remarkable winter, and, I want to thank the lucky stars that I haven't had to get up at 5 a.m. too often this year. Only 3 times for one day. But anyway. Thank you very much. So this is a point of information. It really isn't a matter of a formal vote, but we certainly now, with you being shared publicly with this document, I can post it online and get it out to all parents and so forth. Thank you.
And then superintendent evaluation to be determined, an open-ended anonymous e-survey for
Yeah.
Dr. John.
So I'm very interested in knowing what it is you valued about this last year, but also my tenure as your superintendent. So it's kind of a summative comment. And also what you missed or what you wished, had happened, or given more time or more whatever could have happened. Because that part of it, I think, will help inform, because I'm going to, although it's confidential, I will share those kind of salient points with Mr. Antone, because it's important that he knows what perspective the boards broadly have of the superintendent's tenure, namely me, and what expectations, he might anticipate when he takes the reins at July 1. So, the problem is that I haven't had the time to be able to work this out, figure out what the open-ended questions are, but that's what it'll be. It's not gonna be like, check on a score of 1 to 10 or something like that. That's not what I'm looking for in this case. But it'll only be very brief. It'll probably be 10 items or less, because that's what you can do free on SurveyMonkey and so forth. And, I probably will also include probably figure out a way to include the administrative staff, which is also, Doug, part of the evaluation process. The principals and the licensed professionals at the central office are also surveyed for that evaluation process.
And part of that too, when we did the results of it, we separated out administrative team,
Yeah.
supervisory union team, and then the boards, because it was interesting too to see how
Different
the
perspective.
boards perceive something as the principals did as.
Yeah, you don't see the superintendent the same way that the principals do, or the, central office staff.
So-
I put on different suits, I got my Easter attire on here today, but, yesterday.
Talk like a pirate.
Yesterday it was the mouse, because we got mice in the office. We got the mouse guys. Okay.
I will say Monday he had snowmen.
Yeah, I was rubbing it in on, when I woke up in the snow, we put the snowman on for Monday.
Anybody have a concern with that, or is that okay with everybody?
I hope you're willing to spend a little time on that. It would be a wonderful gift to both me and Bill.
Okay. So we're in new business. Does anybody else have anything new they'd like to bring up? Okay, I've got one thing, and I talked to Dr. John about this, and I didn't get a chance to speak to Mr. Antone about that, but since July 1st, we're gonna have a new superintendent. We have one more meeting. We have the annual meeting in May. We're gonna probably wind up, we're looking, we have an April meeting and a May meeting for the Act 46 group, so we're having a lot of meetings like we've talked about. And one of the things we found out is with the Act 46, if we decide on a path that we want to go, we've got a fairly short time to get that together so we can get everything packaged up for the voters to look at next town meeting. So one of the things I thought maybe instead of when Bill takes over July 1st, maybe we can have the incoming superintendent at the annual meeting in May give us a short 10-minute kind of brief report on, what he's gonna need, or what he sees at now from what he needs from the boards for support to move forward, and what he needs from the WCSU board, besides us having a quorum if we have a meeting. And then that way it's something we can think about, and then we'll have an idea where he's coming from, and then he'll have had that chance to talk to Stephen about the survey Stephen was just talking about, and just do a brief presentation. Does anybody have any issues with that? It's a little funny because we've never had the superintendent, know a year in advance.
Right.
The last few times, we haven't had a superintendent, and the new one kind of just started on
I-
July
Nobody,
1st.
I just was plopped in there,
Yeah, pretty close. It wasn't, we didn't vote on that till like May, I think.
Well, no, I was
April.
it was known that I was, the superintendent, but the concept of my predecessor wasn't to have this kind of a transition, so. It was a pretty bright line, June 30, July 1.
Okay. Anybody have an issue with that, or any comments or thoughts? No?
If you have something to add, don't hesitate to speak to Rich or me.
Are you okay with it?
Oh, I'm sorry, yeah. Thank you.
What do you have in mind?
Just give us kind of your thoughts and your, where we're headed.
I think they want to where you're going and what do you need.
What do you need from us to support you to make sure we all succeed? Would be my simplest definition.
Bill,
What you foresee.
a 45-minute PowerPoint presentation on the state of the supervisory unit.
No, don't do that, because that would really start you off on the wrong foot. And then you would-
Stephen, do you have an idea of what?
I think we will, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and I think we'll consult with the board chair, or at least the executive board chair, since he's duly elected. and-
Okay.
and, to clarify more, but I just invite, and I hope the minutes will record, Peter, that the superintendent invites any member of any of the boards to convey, what questions you may have that could be answered by the future superintendent, at that meeting. I mean, this is a time when people tend to get anxious in transitions of leadership. And Bill and I are trying to do everything we can to make sure that anxiety is addressed in a constructive way.
Everybody good with that?
Thank you.
It's not usually something that we do, but the next meetings are listed under the adjournment. So there's a meeting on the 29th at Leland and Gray for Leland and Gray, Brookline, Newfane Townsend, Jamaica, and Wyndham School Board to discuss Act 46. This was on the recommendation of our consultant, Stephen Dale. Last meeting, the last Act 46 meeting, he spent some time here after the meeting talking with Jamaica, Marlboro. There was a couple other groups in there, and he on his way home, he lives somewhere around Montpelier, so I think he's got like a 2-hour drive, however long it takes.
2:15,
2:15, 2 hours and 15 minutes.
if he obeys the speed limit.
Okay. And his thought was that he thought it would be important that this group get together and just talk and see where everybody's at as a group, because the Leland Gray group is part of, if we want to try to do some kind of side-by-side, there has to be at least 2 boards or 2 groups that come together to form the pre-K through 12. So it would be a meeting that Stephen Dale will run and oversee. It's open to everybody. We're hoping to have it recorded by the gentleman who's sitting back there, his counterpart. Because you didn't come to the last meeting, you sent somebody else.
You can't make it to everything.
And
See if it's on the calendar, Rich.
He's gonna have an agenda, but the agenda hasn't been
It's
sent
coming out tomorrow. Stephen is working on it, Steve's working on
7
it.
o'clock here.
7 o'clock here. It's just a 2-hour meeting. It's, he's very good about getting things to start and end promptly, so. And it will have some specific activities in it that promote, greater understanding of each other's points of view. That's the intention. That's what he's paid to do for us as a consultant. He's not telling us what to do, he's just, trying to lead us.
See where everybody's
Guide us,
at
yeah.
and where they wanna go. Is there any questions on that? So one other thing, again, I just wanna throw out there, because I got asked about it in Dover by a few people, and somebody said to me, so when are you gonna make the decision on what's gonna happen? And I'm like, we don't make the decision, you have to make the decision. So you gotta keep informed. I just wanna remind all the boards too, that, we don't, as a board, don't get to decide. It's the voters that are gonna decide. We kind of get to decide a little bit, because we get to present something to the voters, and we'll be able to make a recommendation. But again, every board's doing it, but make sure I know Jamaica's having some committees, I know Marlboro's got committees, I think everybody's got committees going. Just keep your public informed so that there is no shocks and there is no, all of a sudden, I didn't hear about that. And you know, even if somebody comes up and says that, and you can say, hey, look, we had all these meetings, we sent you the survey, we can't leave a horse to water and make it drink, we tried and it doesn't work, so. But just make sure you always keep the public, because they're the ones that we have to ask to eventually make the decision, or, to approve a decision, and that's gonna be, I think, the most interesting part. And I don't know how other people did at town meeting this year, but our town clerk was surprised at the number of people that came out to vote. And I don't know if it was because of the primary, or if it was that interesting, but we had a pretty good turnout at town meeting for the school portion of the budget, and we did have an Act 46 report, so. And then we have the committee meeting on Monday, April 18th at 7 here, and we have May 16th is the next Act 46, and then May 25th, we have the full board meeting for the annual meeting. And that's the one where we have to approve contracts, so we are definitely gonna try to get a quorum together, or have to make sure we all drag a friend or two. Is there any questions or thoughts on meetings?
I have a question.
Yep.
The things that we couldn't do tonight, like reorganization of the board, will
Yeah.
that be put off till that meeting?
Yeah. So we're gonna go back, and let's go back to reorganization of the board. So one of the things is, the way the law reads is, you're a board while you're a group, and then as soon as you have elections, even if the same people get reelected, you're considered unorganized, because, it could have been new members, so really there is no chairman of WCSU, and there is no treasurer, because all that stuff has to be done at the reorganizational meeting. So we can survive without a chairman, vice chairman, and clerk. Hopefully we don't get sued and the clerk doesn't have to get served. But there's some things we probably should do, and I think according to when we read the executive minute items, they can do things that are time sensitive or need to be done. And I think some things that, we can agree that really don't need to be done. But I think probably the paper record, because our paper record only goes up to when we were when we were last organized as a board. So right now we're a disorganized board. So I think if we start maybe at E,
Yeah.
and go down through, we could do those, and what we'll do is we'll reconfirm them when we have a full board, but this will give the superintendent the ability to do stuff between this meeting and when we are able to meet again in May and hopefully have a full board. And I think what we'll do too is for the next meeting on April 18th, we'll warn maybe 10 minutes in the beginning, if we have a quorum,
Yeah.
that we can at least do that part in the beginning of that meeting.
Question, Rich.
Yes, sir.
Is it not possible to reorganize at the study committee meeting in April?
Yeah, it's just what he said.
Right, no, that's what I just said.
Okay.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah.
Well, the next full board meeting as warned
Is May.
is May 25th. But in fact, if we got enough attendance at the Act 46 meeting on April
We'll try that.
18th, we could try that, and we'll try to put out a message to encourage people to attend. Now, the problem tonight is we have enough boards represented, and it isn't the problem of whether we have enough chairs or vice chairs here, but we don't have a sufficient number of actual members, voting members. We're too shy of that. Okay, that's the problem. That's why it's important that people, the voting members of your boards, do attend, so we can conduct that business.
Yeah, so I said maybe at the April 18th, we'll put 10 minutes in the agenda in the beginning, because we don't want to waste a lot of Stephen's time.
Okay.
So, Stephen Dale's time.
Yeah, right.
We'll waste your time.
You waste my
You're a
time.
short timer.
I'm a waste of time, generally.
Okay.
Okay, paper
Okay.
record, huh?
So do we want to do, so if we started, the paper of record has always been the Brattleboro Reformer. Can we entertain a motion for that?
So moved.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay. Joe made the motion, second down this end. Stephanie, is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Meeting time and
Good.
dates, I think we just go to the draft calendar if everybody's good with that, so if I can get a motion.
So moved. We already did.
I'll second.
Yeah, I know, but we're doing it under organizational. Okay, is there any more discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Appointed treasurer, currently it
It
is,
is, Bud is a treasurer, and the assistant treasurer is Terry Fletcher. You have a suggestion?
Well, just a point of clarification, we actually have two assistant treasurers, Debbie Wood as well.
Debbie Wood.
okay, so let's start with the treasurer.
Yeah.
So we're gonna appoint Bud as our treasurer. or he's the one that we should appoint, because he
Yeah.
kind of has that job.
All right, so moved.
Okay, we have a motion.
Seconded.
Oh, Doug jumped in on it. Ladies first. Is there any discussion? You ready there, buddy?
Ready.
Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
And then we have two assistant treasurers.
Terry Fletcher and Debbie Wood. And so just keep in mind, Terry Fletcher is the person who does the bills and payrolls for WCSU employees and expenses, and Debbie Wood does the other school districts, not counting Dover, Marlboro, and Stratton.
Motion,
So moved.
second.
Second.
Doug seconded it. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
We need to grant the superintendent authority to accept grants. So these are the consolidated grants, the federal grants, and any other grant that his team happens to write.
So moved.
Second,
Seconded.
Doug seconded it. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Surety bonds, we're gonna do
Yep. Oh, I skipped surety bonds. I'm sorry, guys. We need to set surety bond amounts, $1,000 per board member, $5,000 for treasurer, $100,000 for the business manager, and employee dishonesty.
So moved.
Second,
Seconded.
Joe and Doug again. Any discussion?
I'm losing track here.
Okay,
1K, 5K, and 10K.
Yeah, it's on,
100K.
it's on the agenda,
Ah, well, I'll get an agenda at the end.
Yeah,
Oh,
it's,
okay.
it's letter I we're doing.
letter I.
Okay,
Copy paste.
is there any discussion on that?
Let's make sure Peters has the, do you have the motion and the second, Peter, okay?
Not the second.
The
Second was Doug from Marlboro.
Ah, thank you.
Okay, there's no other discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Okay, so I'm gonna jump down now because we have old business. We had approved proposed FY17 WCSU agency fund budget. I think, again, we're gonna need to approve this tonight because they're gonna need to offer contracts to those people that it affects. And I think we can do this again under the emergency clause that we read in the approval, unless anybody has a concern or feels that's not appropriate. Okay, so
I'll
Stephen or
point out,
Bud?
well, I'll point out that all of your budgets were approved, so there isn't any really reason for concern regarding implementation of the WCSU agency fund budget. Of course, I'm listening to your comments about that if there's objection, but that's really our recommendation, that you can proceed, and we do appeal to do so because we have to issue our professionally bargained contracts April 15th at the latest.
Do you have a budgets first look at?
We do have budgets.
Did somebody want to just talk about it briefly? So everybody understands that we have different budgets in the SU. We have three.
Yeah,
We have the superintendent's budget, which is the administrative budget that pays for the superintendent,
special ed director, business office,
and to run the office, the rent.
Yeah,
Then we have a grant budget, which is like the title grants and the federated, they call them something different now.
consolidated federal grant, and that's also IDEAB, which is the special education reimbursements and grants. Now, those generally come through for you on reimbursements in your own budgets by district, but it is part of what we call the grants budget. And then there is the agency fund. So this budget is regarding the people that are employed by the WCSU to provide services for you, mostly direct educational services. In some cases, we have an agency fund, for example, funding a position to assist, support, and monitor the food service programs at each school. Federal lunch programs, a lot of regulation there. Asbestos, we have a very small amount that we are trying to make sure we secure for someone to be licensed. It's Ed McGrath here in our Leland Gray building to do that. I have one copy if we want to refer to the specific
No,
numbers, but.
I double checked when we were in the other meeting and I had it.
So what we did was several years ago, we put off the agency fund and decided to vote on that at the reorganizational meeting, because that would allow boards, if we approved it and Stephen was working with that budget and then our budgets got cut at the town meeting or reduced, that would give us the ability to maybe look at some agency fund items. So, so we started doing that, approving that this time of year. So we've all got to review it if we were on the board before town meeting, and nobody really had any issues. The agency fund is put together by the superintendent with input from every building administrator, and also the school boards get to weigh in on it.
Yeah, because this appears on your budgets as a WCSU assessment, and under
If
nerves
not,
and so
Stephen and I
forth.
can share.
No, I got it.
Oh, you have?
I have one. There is something interesting about the superintendent's budget too, in terms of the assessment. It does vary for those boards that do not take advantage of our accounting services in the office. There's a slight reduction. I don't think that's part of this agency fund, but I'm just pointing out that we do try to make sure there is a, equitable, an appropriate level of service and support commensurate with your needs.
But what's the number, what's the total number we need to approve? Well, there is no cover sheet, and the bottom line, I don't know if that's the number or.
No, hold on a second.
This is special education. There is on the summary page of the WCSU budget, which
It's not attached to this.
I don't, oh, no, there's hope. I got it.
And I'm looking for it on the computer. The one thing I would add is, this is a real dovetailed process, so that everything you see in the agency fund will appear on the individual budgets of every district. So it's truly a collaborative effort.
Are there any questions?
Who wins the race here?
While we're waiting for the bottom line number, is there any questions on individual line items in the budgets? Yes, ma'am?
Why are the unemployment numbers such a huge jump?
Quite frankly, I think we were under budgeted in those amounts. That's a percentage that we anticipate. So, that's one of the things that we always, in any budget review, we want to make sure that we're looking at the best data. So they all did move, and you probably saw that in your individual budgets as well.
Has jumped out at me, the total band program revenues. There seems to be a formula error there. It looks like a $2,000 increase, but it's only showing $879, and it's probably closer to a 3% increase as opposed to 1.09%.
It's like
All the individual,
$2,400.
yeah, 0.92, and then
That's on page 207 on the top.
Yeah, it looks like a formula error. We'll fix that before we.
We gotta get the bottom line for them to
Yep.
approve.
Then
it.
Yeah, I've got-
Stephanie, on your thing, the unemployment's down on that one.
oh, really?
Yeah, on the band.
Okay, agency fund proposed budget, $3,664,306.
So is there anybody else have any other questions on the specifics?
Looking on the paperwork you have, you can see there's about 2 million in special ed, isn't there?
Yes.
Back page.
I'm sorry, Bob, could you repeat that figure?
Okay, $3,664,306.
Did you find that number somewhere?
No, he's online,
No,
looking at the
okay.
line there. I didn't get it.
That includes page 7. of
That's
the-
right, that's including that 2 million. That's why it's a logical number in I just wanted to make sure it was.
So it's about 1.1 million in band and phys ed and librarian and stuff.
And the difference from last year to this year, is so great just because we're all now paying up to the WCSU instead of in the individual budgets for special ed, correct?
Yes, most of you in your reviews of your budgets at town meeting and so forth were able to point out the reduction in another line item that was compensated for by the
Yeah.
WCSU assessment. Our overall increase hasn't been significant in the individual districts unless there's some drastic change in your special ed situation. We're basically continuing the programs in all your schools as we have in the past in terms of itinerary.
Anybody else with any? And again, these haven't changed from the stuff we reviewed back in November.
November and December. December 2 is when we had this in front of us with the big,
With
all
budgets.
three of them together.
You guys have a copy? You want one? Oh, you guys did, Bill? You all did?
So I'll make an emergency motion to approve the agency fund
In the amount of
in the amount of $3 million, I don't know.
664.
664,306.
Okay, so Doug made a motion. Do we have a second? Sure. Okay, Joe seconded it.
Discussion.
Is there any further discussion? Is everybody ready to vote? Big money. Okay. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And any abstentions? Budget carries. Congratulations, folks. So we have an executive session. I'm gonna ask that we're way ahead of schedule because we're gonna do a lot of stuff. Why don't we take 5 minutes, 5 to 10 minutes? Is there any boards that wanna talk about any Act 46 issues or discussions since our last meeting of a couple weeks ago? And we'll start way down at Wyndham and.
I can only speak, just from speaking with Auntie and Howie, who's technically a Leland and Gray board member, but from Wyndham. I was sending my kid to China Monday night, so that's why I wasn't here. I get confused. I know that they're trying to talk more about, or to include discussion on supervisory unions, doing some collaboration. And that's,
With the other, like Wyndham
yeah,
Southwest.
which I know has been kind of in the works, but yeah.
We've tried, we've actually had a response from just Wyndham Southwest. We had a meeting with them, and pretty much their superintendent told us that they were headed in a direction that they've been kind of working on since
Side by side.
since the beginning, and there really hasn't been any interest from any other supervisory union to talk with us. So we have reached out, we have sent letters, and we've tried, and.
No, I know they just spoke to Stephen Dale, the last meeting that
meeting.
they're at, so I think they were, trying to focus more on him.
Good.
Cool. Anything from the Leland Gray point of view?
We just wait patiently to see what our sending towns do with us.
Good.
I mean, we're gonna work with everybody we can, as part of it, but a lot of it rests in the hands of our towns.
Wardsboro.
Nothing real new to add, just following suit. We're actually having a town meeting, what is that, in May? So just after this exploratory committee wraps up, we'll have a town meeting to discuss results from that. See where we are then.
Good. Thank you. Marlboro.
Are we gonna get the criteria before the next meeting that we're
Yes.
gonna rate?
Yes.
Okay, when is that expected?
We had, Steve's working on this other meeting that kind of interceded,
Mhm.
but after that meeting, you should be able to expect it. He'll have the criteria, he hopes to have the criteria out for that meeting too.
I'm just wondering, I'd like to get it done at our board meeting, which is April 4th. Do you think it'll be
Oh,
to
yeah.
us at least by then?
No, that'd be fine.
Okay, we might add that to our agenda,
So make sure that we do that.
Yeah, I would definitely send him an email directly.
at least by April 1, would be good to have. And then as far as our town, we've got at least 100 responses to our survey. We have 2 more weeks for the survey out. I'm anticipating a lot more. Some board members haven't even filled it out yet, but basically after that, that's really just to inform a lot of our decisions, up until about May when the study committee ends, or the exploratory committee ends. And then we'll sort of be ready to probably have more community meeting and say, this is where we think it's going, and this is where we think we are, and by the fall, who knows? But just probably opening it back up to the community again.
Your survey's, it's closing on the 1st, isn't that right?
We aim to close it on the 1st. That's our external saying,
Okay.
but we always knew that we were probably going to put it out to the 7th, but we're telling people
I
to
see.
try and get it by the
Okay.
1st, and then say, oh, we were extending our deadline.
Well, now that's on the video. It's, maybe the 14th.
Redacted.
Don't publish this video.
Don't publish
That's
this till after the 1st. Okay, any early results, anything sticking out at you?
I can't make a judgment. We're just really figuring out how we're going to gather the data and capture it, but it's going to have pie charts, which would be nice.
I have copies of the survey if anybody wants it.
Yeah, we handed them out at the last meeting.
Yeah,
didn't we?
they're on. I mean, everybody's seen it probably.
Okay.
But
But if anybody wants a copy, if you're curious, I have copies, hard copies. Obviously, if you're not a, member of the Marlboro community, you ought not to be submitting it. But
yes. Yeah, I haven't shared it with anybody outside the outside of Marlboro.
Cool. Townsend.
Townsend, we had our last meeting, but there wasn't a lot of discussion about it. We're really just looking forward to meeting with the Leland and Gray Supervisory District Group and trying to work together to figure out a way to make this come together. But that's about it.
Cool. Dover. Jeff, you want?
I mean, all of our committees have been meeting, right now, just a lot of discussions, but what else can I throw out there?
We had our survey at town meeting, we
Yeah.
talked about that at the last meeting, and ours was only 3 questions, and it seemed to give us some direction on where to go.
Yeah, you had a pretty clear outcome on your survey.
We have a pretty clear outcome, and the handcuffs are on.
And all of you got a copy of that, at least unless you're new members of the board. I sent, a PDF of the results of that.
I just want you all to know that in our survey, Wardsboro got mentioned, as specifically in one of our questions.
You're famous over there.
Yes. Jamaica.
Nothing super new. We're meeting again, our committees are meeting again tomorrow night. We're gearing up for the May 17th meeting that we're gonna have, for our whole community. We're gonna be taking a poll at that meeting, see where the town would like us to move at that point. So we're hoping for a good turnout and a clear answer.
So you're not sending out a poll, you're gonna have them all come and talk with you?
At this point, that's what we're looking at, is having people come to the meeting here, because our committees are gonna be presenting what their research, what they've learned, so we want people to hear the information and then answer from after that where they think we should go.
Good.
Hey, Stephanie, is your poll is that regarding Leland Gray and Burton, or is it?
It's regarding the 4 options that Jamaica's been researching this whole time.
And the 4 options are?
Creating a pre-K-12 with the Leland and Gray group, staying in this SU and perhaps joining with Dover, Wardsboro, et cetera, and having choice 7 through 12. Leaving the SU, joining in with the Floodbrook / Mountain Town Red group, and then becoming a full choice town, joining with some other, Win Hall, Stratton, et cetera, someone in that group.
Is everybody good with that?
What was the third one?
She said 2 pretty closely together. Separate those a little bit. Floodbrook and your full choice, K through 12.
The third one is joining the Floodbrook group and having choice from grades 9 through 12. And the 4th option is becoming a full choice town, like similar to Stratton or Win Hall, and joining with one or several of those towns. And it's not gonna be, we're not having a binding vote, I wanna make that clear, because I think there's some confusion. We're not like warning a binding vote that night. It's a poll to help direct the board what we should, which study committee we should join.
Yeah, it's really difficult, again, because, we as a boards don't get to decide, but we have to present something, and, you get one shot at it, and if your voters vote against it, then what do? How do you go back to the drawing board after all that effort? Stratton.
Stratton, we're in that unique position of being a non-operating district, so we're trying to reach out to and receiving invitations from other non-operating districts in the sort of southern half of the state.
Yep.
So looking towards joining with other non-operatings. We don't even really have a formal study committee yet, we're just finding dance partners.
Cool.
And there is an interesting meeting, May 1, I think it's still scheduled, isn't it, for
Yes,
the Sandgate, Win Hall, and Ira
and
possibly.
possibly Ira, yeah, and now of course Searsburg has expressed
Yeah.
interest in discussion, I don't know if they'll join that discussion
Right,
or not,
yeah.
but we'll see.
Okay. Any other comments, thoughts,
What
answers?
happens if this doesn't go anywhere, Act 46, what would be the next?
If what doesn't go anywhere?
If this doesn't, if nothing comes, if none of the towns are able to agree on anything that's,
Then what'll happen is each individual town will have to make a case to the State Board of Ed that you should be left, you'd be able to stay and operate your own school as you've been operating it. And then the State Board of Ed will hold a hearing and decide whether they agree with you or disagree with you. And if they don't think that you should, then they will give you like maybe an option, or they may tell you what to do. They may say, okay, Wyndham, here's your options. You can either join this group or join that group, and that's what we've seen. The problem is the State Board of Ed hasn't really given any opinions yet. So we don't know what they're gonna feel like. And it's also the Commissioner of Education, Secretary of Education gets to weigh in on that also. And I think they're not gonna know until they actually see what's going on all around us. That's been a concern of some people, is like orphan districts, let's, just for an example, and I'm not saying it's happening, but let's say that, Dover and Wardsboro and Jamaica all decide to join, and the Leland and Gray towns decide to join, and Marlboro said, no, we wanna stay pre-K through 8, and we don't fit in the Leland and Gray, or we don't fit in Wyndham Central, and we don't wanna join the Wilmington group, the Halifax group, and we don't wanna join the other group, that we wanna stay on our own. And then the Secretary of Education will make a recommendation to the Board of Ed, the State Board of Ed, and the State Board of Ed can either grant Marlboro's request or say, no, we want you have to either join Group A or Group B. And, that's where we're at. And then remember, from the meetings we've had, is that, if you try to stay on your own, or you don't do anything and let them do it to you, then you don't get any of the benefits. You don't get the hold harmless for the population. You don't get the small school grant, and you don't get that 8.642% tax reduction for the new district, right?
The 150 transition.
Right. So, and it's really hard because what really gets me is there's some really easy ones, and I think there was just a report that came around. It was a 3-page thing from the secretary saying, here's the groups that have come together, and there's been 20 of them, right?
How many, Bill? It's 8 that have voted, isn't it, or? I think 8 have been approved.
Did everybody see the email from the secretary? I mean, I think you sent it out, Stephen, right?
Yeah, I did.
So it's kind of interesting. There's some real easy ones. Steve Dale talked about it, where there was 3 towns that all fed in the same high school. So it was really natural for them just to become one district. So towns that voted to unify on town meeting day, there was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There's 5 groups.
There may have been 3 more since then.
Yeah, so, I mean, here's the paperwork. We've kind of discussed it, but if anybody wants to look at it. So that's kind of where we all stand. And I think Stephen Dale, I think everybody can agree, he's been a pretty good leader. I mean, I think he's done really good with us on our committee now, and he's brought some really good information. And I think our prep work, the meetings we held prior to getting him, so we've discussed a lot of this stuff. I think it was good because we had some answers for him. And I think, but this union is really a unique supervisory union. And again, I keep saying, when we went up and testified 2 years ago before the Senate, they're saying, well, schools don't share, and I'm like, well, we do in Leland and Gray and Wyndham Central. We had this agency fund thing, and they're looking at us like we had 3 heads, and we're like, no, really, it's only 1 head, and we share resources. And we went to a meeting in Wyndham Southwest, and the one gentleman's talking about how much trouble they're having getting a gym teacher in their school. Music, or whatever, and I'm like, well, why don't you share resources? And I went to another meeting in Brattleboro, and there was somebody from Guilford that said, we're having issues. And I'm like, we do this agency fund thing, and, you know, you saw our business manager, you know, so he should be able to tell you how to do it. He set it up for us up here. So I think, you know, we've done a lot of this stuff before, and it just seems like maybe they should recognize that.
Well, Rich, I guess that was my point. I was kind of asking the obvious question, what happens next? Because, I mean, I know Stephanie has worked really hard on making things work in her community, bring it out there, and when do we get to just say that we have been doing these things?
Well, and these steps we're going through, I think, are gonna be important, because if we have to justify why we can't do anything, or we shouldn't do anything, and we should stay the way we are, they're not gonna accept it if we all just, remember when we first started this, I said, you know, doing nothing is not an option, because if we just did nothing and went to them and said, okay, well, we're happy the way we are, just leave us alone, they're not gonna do that. But we went through the study, we had a consultant, we looked at all the options, we talked to our members. This is what the voters wanted to see, this is what they voted for. We've done all this work, you know, this is what we want to see happen. And I think we're in a better position to get that, whatever we decide, if we spent the time and did the homework. And I don't think anybody can say we haven't done the homework, because there's other districts that haven't engaged the public at all yet. And I think we saw that in, you know, like in some of the towns that have talked about, they were sure that they knew what they were gonna do, and they were gonna, you know, rush it through to get the 10-cent savings, and they weren't able to do it locally, because they didn't engage the public. And we've been engaging the public, I think, you know, really from last year, May, at the annual meeting. We held a meeting in June, July, August, and I think we can definitely show whatever we come up with, that, you know, we have looked around.
I do, a representative from the Marlboro Board was out in the Putney-Dummerson Vernon meeting, where Rebecca Holcomb was present recently, and at that meeting, she gleaned that basically Rebecca Holcomb they didn't anticipate so many schools going accelerated route, and they may not have sufficient funding for all
Well,
of
they
it.
will, they'll just take it out of you.
Take it from us.
Well, the penalties we'll have to pay after you guys kick us out. But, but essentially, that's what's happening at that level, which, you know, all that money that's in the general ed fund, which could be going to spread equity, will be going to squash it, I think, in my opinion.
Well, this report supports that somewhat, Douglas. The 5 towns, the five groups that voted, you know, the lowest percentage of passage was 70% vote, you know, anywhere up to 84% in these 5 different units that did it on town meeting day. Now, the total here is 9 that have done so since July 1 of 2015. Because this actually is a continuation of Act 153 in terms of the opportunities we studied before as it read in the Leland Gray group. And then there are 2 more that are scheduled for April 12th. So we'll see what happens in Addison, Rutland, and Lamoille North, which will be apparently a vote, warrant ballot vote.
I think she was
warrant for
also
April 12th.
referring to the study committees, which, as Stephen Dale says, are pretty much legal entities, and I think that those are in place, and she's anticipating that that's gonna go to a vote, because it has to, after
Yeah.
it's been in a study committee.
Well,
So we're
yeah.
talking like next year,
A lot
town
more.
meeting, yeah, a lot more.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's an important note too. Remember, we're not in a study committee mode. We're an exploratory
Exploratory study
committee.
committee.
So
not-
nobody's bound to any decision that comes from this.
Right.
If we decide in May or after May to go as an exploratory, to request
As
an
a formal
exploratory,
study.
as a formal study, I'm sorry, yeah, not an exploratory, then that's more of a commitment. That's saying we are gonna move towards a vote in this area.
And that will be based on, or at least advised by recommendation from Stephen Dale? So he will recommend what he thinks is
No,
best?
he's never gonna recommend to
That'll
us.
be, that'll be the executive committee of this board will make that recommendation. And,
Well, that,
obviously, there'd
the
be difference of
individual
opinions.
boards.
Yeah, the individual boards, but you know, if you choose as any individual boards to enter into a formal $20,000 grant study with a consultant, then, you know, that has to be under application by your superintendent, and I'm ready to do that any time. That's how we got to this point with our $5,000 grant. But that means, at that point, those boards would have to be appointing the members of the study committee, which the law advises be at least 1 member from the board. it can be members from the public as well. But the number that would be on that study committee is entirely open to the collaborative group. So but that has to be specified in the application. You know, the boards are gonna have to commit to that study committee and know who those people are, so that the agency is not funding a project that there is no committee that's really charged with taking care of it, you know, making the decision. And the decision would not be to combine it, I think the decision would be to take it to a vote to the public.
We all good? We're good. Okay. So then, what I will do is we will entertain a motion to move into executive session for negotiation and personnel.
I'll just try to inform you of what the latest developments are. I don't believe I need an executive session for personnel. Before we go into executive session, though, I did want to recognize and thank Bud DeBonis for his work with the boards for the last 2 years. Bud has taken a position north. I congratulate him up in Orleans Southwest. Hardwick is the name of the center town. And I think he sent you a message by email if you were on the list. So if it surprises some of you, I apologize, but that is the situation. And Mr. Anton and I are taking under advisement as to how to proceed. Our first priority is to hire the CHAT position, the Curriculum Instruction Assessment and Technology Integration Coordinator for the SU. And then we also have the task of finding a replacement for Dr. Doreen Dorfman, who has taken a position in the Burlington School District for next year. Closer to home, she'll have a less than an hour commute from her home, and I'm very happy for her in terms of her family situation and her professional options in a larger district. And so that's something we're going to, that position is out posted. The applications will close April 15th. And then we'll, when we get that done, then we'll proceed to look at the reorganization or the potential change in how to replace our accounting functions in the WCSU central office. We have a lot of excitement to work on here, Mr. Anton and I, and we're ready to roll here. Do the best we can.
Any questions on those issues?
See, none of that is really executive session at this point. I thought some of it might be, but that's not the case.
So we just have the negotiation.
That's right. And this is the ratification of, well, no, we'll just talk negotiations, yeah. It is having to do with the teacher's contract. And you are all involved, even if your particular district is not part of the bargaining unit. You are involved because of your role as the WCSU Board, which contractually employs teachers throughout all the schools.
Well, the agencies fund teachers.
Right, and I know that those of you, you know, are anxious to leave. This will not be a long session, but we do have to have a quorum when we come out to be able to so ratify, at least a quorum by the
Quorum of the executive committee.
executive committee.
So that means Stratton can't leave.
Well, I don't know. How many do we have without Stratton?
You can leave.
Can't vote anyway, but now let's make sure,
But you should stay just so you can bring back to your board.
Let's
So
make sure-
I'll entertain a motion to move into executive session for negotiations. Doug?
Was so moved.
So moved?
I'll second.
Okay, thank you. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay, so now we're in executive session, sir, so you gotta shut your camera off.
Somebody try it, I don't know who it was.
Okay, so we're out of executive session by unanimous consent or by consent at 8:50 PM. So, Joe?
All right, I'll make a motion that we ratify?
Yes.
Ratify the agreement, tentative agreement between the Wyndham Central Education Association and Wyndham Central Supervisory Union. It's dated July 1st, 2016 through June 30th, 2017.
Okay, do we have a second to the motion?
Second.
Okay. Second. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Looks like you got yourself a contract there, Dr.
We can
Tom.
issue contracts on that basis, thank you very much.
So can somebody make a motion to adjourn? So moved.
Second.
Okay. We're adjourned at 8:52.